Hello Professor and classmates, this is Radwa Mohamed and this is iBlog number 4. In chapter 13, we discussed acquiring information systems and applications. This diagram shows how we plan and justify IT applications. When we talk about organizational or business aspects of an organization, we look at a plan which is complex and expensive, where we focus on the long-term goals, complex resources and applications in softwares and financial resources and so on. So first, we have to understand organizational mission. So what are we and what do we want to do? What are we doing? Next, we look at the business assessment. How is our business doing? What are we hoping to gain from all our activities and so on? And when we have those two, we start thinking about our organization's strategic plan, which is a document identifying the organization's overall missions and the steps required to reach them. So once we're done with that, we have to understand the current information technology architecture in our organization and the capabilities where we end up with either an information system or information technology strategic plan. So basically, there are a set of long-term goals that describe the IT infrastructure and describe the main IT initiatives that are needed to reach our goals. So if we were successful in doing so, it will result in having a new information technology architecture once we implement the IT or IS strategic plan. Its steering committee is a set of MIS individuals as well as others that monitor, steer, and establish IT priorities and make sure we are efficiently using IT to reach our goals. Then we end up with an IS or IT operational plan, which consists of a clear group of projects that are needed to be executed to support the IT strategic plan mentioned earlier. Finally comes the IS development projects. The main objectives of the IT strategic plan is that it must be aligned and clash-free with the organizational strategic plan. They must provide an IT architecture that effortlessly connects and networks users, applications, and databases, and must efficiently allocate IS development resources within powerfully competing projects in order for them to be finished in time within the specified budget while being at the desired level of functionality. In real life, that doesn't really happen. A typical IS operational plan includes a mission statement, IS environment, which allows you to understand where you're starting from and what are you working with, objectives of the IS function, understand what kind of IS you have and what is it supposed to deliver, constraints of the IS function. Not every problem can be solved by investing in the IS. There are some constraints, obviously. The application portfolio. Each division will have its own application portfolio, which are basically multiple applications regarding a single unit, and resource allocation and project management. You will generally have less resources than required to fulfill needs, which will create lots of conflicts. So you allocate your resources, and once you're done with that, you look at the project management, which is how you manage your projects in the IS development project step after the portfolio. So what are the managerial tools needed to manage and develop those projects and so on. So when you evaluate and justify IT investment, first you have to assess the costs. You calculate the cash needed to invest, which isn't easy to calculate. We allocate the fixed cost within the different IT projects, such as the infrastructure cost, IT service, IT management. For example, any app on your phone has cost, whether it's a free installment or not, because you reduce your battery as well as storage and so on. And then you assess the benefits, also difficult to quantify because most of them are intangible. Implementing a new system could result in customer satisfaction you never expected or higher prestige, which is something hard to assess. And finally, you conduct the cost-benefit analysis, trying to understand whether the benefits outweigh the cost or vice versa. We have 4 common approaches to cost-benefit analysis, which are net present value, return on investment, break-even analysis, and business case approach. So whenever we develop a system development should be well-structured and well-planned. SDLC, or System Development Lifecycle, is like a blueprint that puts some order into the chaos. It slices the development efforts into phases, and depending on the kind of SDLC used, we can do the phases sequentially or unordered. This diagram shows us the SDLC process. We first try to identify what is the business need, and that leads us to the system investigation that results in either having a go decision or not. If we have a go decision, we start with the system analysis, where we try to understand the system user requirements. For system investigation and system analysis, we have the uppercase tools helping us to achieve and deliver them. Then we proceed to system design, where we make a blueprint of technical specifications. System analysis and system design have a joint application design. We end up building those blueprints and testing them, then implementing them. Finally, we end up using the system, running it, and maintaining it in the operation and maintenance step. For programming and testing, implementation, and operations and maintenance, we have lowercase tools to help us. Prototyping is running in circles in system analysis and programming and testing steps. In SDLC system investigation, we have 3 basic solutions to consider. We have to go through the feasibility to be able to make a go or no-go decision. First, technical feasibility. Do we have the technology to make the system work? Second, economic feasibility. Do we have the money to make the system work? Does the benefit outweigh the cost? And finally, the behavioral feasibility. Can you have the people behave in the required way to make the system run? Moving on to chapter 3, ethics is what people see as right and wrong, and based on that, they will be able to make a decision and behave in a certain way. Ethics is subjective. It depends on the context and differs from one person to another. Standards used to create an ethical framework used in ethical decision making include utilitarian approach, which if a certain behavior action ends up providing the most good with the least amount of harm possible, that would be the ethical action. In the rights approach, the action that best protects and takes into consideration the moral rights of any affected individual is the ethical action. In fairness approach, all individuals are treated equally. If we have to be unequal, then at least in a fair manner that follows certain defensible standards. For example, it is fair to give scholarships to high-achieving students rather than low achievers. In common good approach, the actions showing respect and compassion to all other individuals is the ethical action. It puts emphasis on the interconnected relationships in all societies. And finally, the deontology approach, which is the degree of morality of an action, is based on whether the action is right or wrong, based on specific rules rather than consequences of the action. So 5 steps in ethical decision making. First, you have to recognize an ethical issue. What situation or action has created an ethical issue? Is it damaging people? Is there a choice between a good alternative and a bad one? And so on. And then you get the facts. This can be difficult or easy depending on the context. So what facts are directly relevant to the situation at hand? Do we have enough information to make the best decision? And so on. Evaluate alternative actions. Here you look at the different alternatives you have and see which one suits which ethical standard approach. Then you make a decision and test it. You keep in mind all different approaches, which one best solves the ethical issue in hand. And finally, you act and reflect on the outcome of your decision. How can you implement the decision in the best way possible to address the concerns of all stakeholders? What are areas of improvement? How was the decision? What was learned from the situation? And so on. So Codes of Ethics in a Corporate Environment is a document that explains how a company understands ethics. We have fundamental tenets of ethics. First, responsibility, where you accept the consequences of your decisions and behavior, whether it's good or bad. Accountability is recognizing who is responsible for specific actions. Liability is legal idea where people have the right to recover from any damage done by others, the firm or system. Sometimes the damage cannot be recovered, for example, in the case of execution of an innocent person. General categories of ethical issues related to IT include privacy issues such as collecting, spreading, storing, and selling information about individuals, accuracy issues such as authenticity and correctness of collected and processed information, property issues such as ownership and value of information, accessibility issue such as who should be authorized and if a fee should be paid for access. There are 2 rules followed while making most court decisions worldwide, which is privacy rights are not 100% because some invasion of privacy is needed for the better good of the society. There should be a balance between privacy and society needs. And the public's right to know certain information replaces the individual privacy. So how does privacy reflect in the system and how are we getting it from the system? Digital dossier is everything put together, data integrated and collected in whatever way about you in one day, from surveillance cameras to phone calls to credit card transactions and so on. Profiling is the process of which digital dossier is created, and data aggregators are companies gathering public and non-public data to create digital dossiers by profiling. There are systems that can use a lot of your partial identities to reveal your complete or almost complete and true identity. If someone has your complete identity without your permission, that would be a problem because they can steal your identity and take action under your name and impersonate you, such as open a credit card under your name. In Chapter 4, we discuss some terminology such as security, which is the protection level to prevent bad things from happening, such as criminal activity, loss, or damage. Information security is any process, activity, or policy we follow to make sure our organization's information and systems are protected from damage, destruction, and authorized access, and so on. Threat to an information resource is any danger or unauthorized action that a system may be exposed to. And exposure is the damage or loss that could occur if an information resource or system is introduced to a threat. And finally, vulnerability of an information resource is how possible it is that a system will be exposed and harmed by a threat. Factors that contribute to a system's vulnerability include the interconnectedness, interdependence, and wireless network business environment of today's world. It is very easy to gain unauthorized access to information, such as having small button-like mics and cameras in top-secret organizational meetings. It's more convenient, smaller, faster, cheaper computers and storage devices. Little skills needed to hack a computer or device. International organized crime taking over cybercrime because it's harder for them to get caught there. And little to no management support. Thank you for listening.